Oh, the entire market is
Finally.
going to have to reel back.
These are my guys right here. You don't understand, Soren. I need
I
Buzz to lock in. There's
Oh,
there's no Rainbow Six Siege, like none of that going on here this week.
we're gonna tune in and see what they were doing live on the scene.
Welcome back, everyone, to the loading screen. Another week, another dollar.
Oh yeah.
My name, of course, is Zero Fight, joined by the lovely Soren. You may notice we are missing our dear friend Ged this week. He had other plans or something, couldn't make it out. I don't really, yeah. Allegedly.
Allegedly.
Had to like go to Seattle. Sounds like
He or something like
but,
that, or like his brother.
Yeah, being a good sibling. Can you imagine? No.
Sibling, I'm an only child.
Crazy stuff. So you really can't imagine, actually.
No, I can't.
Know nothing about that. Can't be me. But an exciting week of news roundup. Have a lot going on within the esports scene and the general gaming community. But to kick us off, we are going to be headed towards a topic that we really haven't talked about much. That's the Pokemon World Championship heading to San Francisco with a new fan experience. The Pokemon World Championships 2026 heads to San Francisco from August 28th to 30th, bringing over 3,000 global competitors across titles like Pokemon Go, Pokemon Unite, Pokemon Violet and Scarlet, and the Pokemon trading card game together. The event includes and introduces PokémonXP, a fan festival featuring cosplays, workshops, community experiences, and expanding the beyond traditional competition into a full-scale fan celebration and convention. Finals will be hosted at the Chase Center, a major esports venue, reinforcing Pokemon's pushed stadium-level competitive showcases for the second year in a row. Of course, there will also be the Pokemon Center pop-up for all of your Pokemon goodies, TCG, wants, plushies, everything that you may need. Backed by the Pokemon Company, the scene continues to grow strong in viewership and global reach with multiple game ecosystems and new titles like Pokemon Champions entering competitive play. Speaking of Pokemon Champions, it will be launching on the Nintendo Switch in April 2026 with mobile, both iOS and Android, releasing later this year. It's going to be positioning itself as a battle-focused, turn-based title centered on competitive formats like singles and doubles, mainly doubles, rather than focus on traditional catching mechanics. This will be replacing the standard games such as Scarlet and Violet in the competitive scene, and hopefully taking a bit easier of a stepping stone to get into the competitive space. Players can import teams via Pokemon Home or build from an in-game roster with launch celebrations, including rewards such as Mega Stones for transferring key Pokemon from Pokemon Legends ZA. The game will become the official platform for Pokemon World Champions 2026 and VGC tournaments, replacing Scarlet and Violet in most regions, marking a major shift in the competitive ecosystem. This will be an exciting transition, in my opinion. I think it will be a great opportunity for lots of new hands to get themselves on the Pokemon competitive ecosystem. I know there's currently many battle simulators such as Smogon and just online simulators that hopefully this will aim to replace. I know there's going to be some limitations, including only 30 Pokemon being able to be stored in Pokemon Champions, but more details will come as we get closer to that launch date, and excited to see how Pokemon takes this transition into a new competitive era.
Yeah, I'm actually really excited. One, because we're getting it back on North American soil, which I know a couple years ago they were in Japan, and that's the one that I really remember because I know a bunch of content creators went out to Japan for that. But I'm excited that they're also growing into a very big venue. I don't know if it's like a well-known thing, but the Chase Center obviously is a very big venue. That is actually where Worlds was held when it was last in North America. Grand finals were played in the Chase Center in San Francisco. So this is nothing to sniff at. This is a really big event for them, and I'm super excited. I'm nowhere near as pop or as uh big into the Pokemon scene, but I do, dabble in it. I watch Wolfie videos every once in a while.
Shout
So I get
out.
a little bit of the lowdown. But yeah, no, I'm really excited. I think that's a massive step up for the game, and I think it's very well deserved too, because Pokemon is massive, like insanely massive. Like to the point of, even if people aren't a fan of like the competitive scene, I think there's still going to be people who are going to want to go to the event just because it's a Pokemon event. So I'm really excited. I think this is a perfect move for them, and if this goes well, I'm really excited for the scene even more, because this is just going. If they could sell out a venue or do really well at a venue like the Chase Center, this year, I would not be surprised if they either look for something bigger or something equivalent next year, which going up to that scale and then kind of moving parallel there's a lot of very big venues you can suddenly work around, and you start looking at like the O2 in London, or like places like even Madison Square Garden over in New York. So there's a lot of very big venues that they could be moving to if this Chase Center deal works out.
Yeah, definitely. So I think there's a lot of improvement since post COVID with the Pokemon esports, especially with creators like you said, like Wolfie VGC, like Azul GG in the trading card game. So all these creators putting a lot of emphasis and focus. And while I think turn-based games maybe don't necessarily always make the best esports experience, I think games like Pokemon Unite, as well as just the general community around Pokemon, it is just such a cool celebration of the game, of the community, of the largest media franchise in the world. So uh, I think we will be going back to San Francisco next year, or I want it. It's somewhere in North America, I believe. Again, for the next year or two, maybe San Diego, but not 100%. Maybe we'll have to fact check that, get the editor to maybe look like an idiot to recreate it. But I do think it's going to be an amazing opportunity for fans to get themselves inside the venue and just have more in-person experiences, because isn't that, I mean, that's what esports is all about, getting people together, connected as a community. I think post COVID, it's just become more and more important and desired to have those experiences. So very excited to see it, how Worlds 2026 ends up.
Yeah, absolutely. And before we move on to our next main topic, we kind of glossed over it real quick. We maybe poked a little fun at it, but obviously there are just two of us on the desk, and that is because Ged is being a really good brother and actually helped take him out to Seattle, their local regional qualifiers for the Pokemon video game scene. And we're gonna tune in and see what they were doing live on the scene. I think either earlier today or yesterday. You guys are gonna get it overlaid, but we're gonna check this out right now.
Loading screen, fam, viewers, everybody involved. Love to hear it. Love to hear it. Thank you for throwing it over to me, Zero and Soren. I'm here at Pokemon Regionals in Seattle, and there are so many people. Like, oh my god. So many. Those are the main stages, the broadcast stages over there. That's the red one in the middle. That's VGC. That's Pokemon Go, and that is the trading card game. This is only the room where VGC is being played. Over on the other side of the convention center is the much larger trading card game room. So it's really cool out here. I've never been to a Pokemon Regional before, but this is really sweet, I won't lie. You can just feel the passion oozing from every single staff member, every single competitor walking around. Everyone is super hopeful, everyone's super excited. And I don't know how good the quality of the footage is right now, because I have my camera turned around and I can't see the screen because I can't flip the camera mid-recording because this phone's a piece of shit. Anyway, have fun with the episode and goodbye.
That is awesome though. I mean, to put in perspective, because I got the privilege of going to DreamHack in Atlanta last year, which had multiple fighting games, Clash Royale. They had a whole section that was just for ARC Raiders as well, even though that wasn't a competitive game. Marvel Rivals Grand Finals, and obviously, while it's not nearly as big of a venue, just because DreamHack is huge and has like 20 competitive games. That area though would make it like by far almost like a third of the area for the entirety of Atlanta event.
Yeah.
Especially if that is truly just the people playing the video game section and not TCG or Go. So that is
Mhm.
crazy. That is
Yeah.
insane to see.
The scene continues to grow for all Pokemon esports games. I mean, I went to the 2023 Peoria Regional Championship for the TCG, and I think at that point it was just starting to do like in-person events again after COVID, and they were breaking numbers already, and now we're getting double, triple those numbers sometimes, and so it's just super sick to see how much love there is for the Pokemon community, and I mean the event spaces keep on getting bigger because they keep. So I mean, you know, love to see it, and can't wait to see how it continues to grow because I know it's going to, bro.
It's the biggest IP in the world, and I don't think it's particularly close. Pokemon is a whole monster in and of itself.
Yeah.
But speaking of monsters in and of themselves, we are going to be moving on to the next big headline, which is all about the biggest, arguably the biggest gaming company in the world, and it's not Riot, it's Valve. New York AG sues Valve over loot box gambling allegations. This is something we have talked about. I don't know if we've talked about in depth on the loading screen, but the gaming sphere in general, this has always been kind of a conversation. Not particularly focused around Valve, notably, but them being the biggest provider of video games, they are always a part of the conversation. Letitia James has filed a lawsuit against the Valve Corporation, accusing it of promoting illegal gambling through loot box systems and titles like Counter-Strike 2, Dota 2, and Team Fortress 2. Lots of twos. Didn't realize that. The suit claims Valve enables real money trading of loot box items via third-party platforms, exposing players, especially minors, to gambling-like risks. The Attorney General seeks to halt these practices, recover alleged profits, and impose fines under New York law. Valve has recently introduced alternative to loot boxes and restricted third-party skin gambling promotions, but has not yet responded to the lawsuit. Yeah, obviously this is really big news. I think there was a we covered a topic back in like November where they did make a couple of adjustments on what items like could and could not be sold on the marks. And I think we talked about it like over $1 billion of value being lost from the Steam store overnight, just like that.
Yeah, with like the trade
So
ups,
they
right?
yeah, I think so. They have been making moves toward this, but I absolutely get it. I love him. He founded 100 Thieves. I love the guy. Don't get me wrong. But like one of the biggest streams from last year that I remember was like the big loot box streams that Nadeshot did. I think back towards like early fall of last year. And I remember sitting there being like, this is getting so many views, so many people are watching this. Like this is one of the big events happening right now this month, and it's just this person who's big in esports throwing money at a wall in the hopes that they can
Yeah.
make money back. This is just someone live gambling, but rather than hitting a button and seeing like the thing spin and you're sitting at like a slot machine, they're just sitting there hitting a button and hoping that they see a knife or a glove pop up on screen. But at
Yeah.
the end of the day, really did feel like that was it. So I'm not surprised this is coming through. But I also am surprised that it's just subject to Valve. If this does not go Valve's way, though, oh, the entire
I
market is
genuinely
going to have to reel back.
Yeah, no, certainly so. And I think as well, I mean, you touched on it, right? The one of the biggest streams and continuing to be some of the biggest streams aren't not even necessarily towards Valve, but just these like online gambling websites, especially with the I mean, it's really just Kick. Like if like let's be real. Like that enables it a lot of the
Twitch
time
started
because they are
banning it, so
sponsored
yeah.
by Stake. And there's ways to get around these gambling laws that have been set in place because it's whether it be loot boxes, so it's not technically gambling for a return because you can't sell the items that you're getting like the gloves or the knives technically on the Steam market for cash. You have to go through those third party websites, but people like Nadeshot are being sponsored by those companies. And that's not necessarily Valve, but it's through Valve products, and there's the S majors that get sponsored by those skin trading websites and stuff like that. So, and whenever Valve is involved and maybe not directly has their like hand, and they're not the ones being sponsored by those websites, but they still are allowing it within their esport ecosystem. I definitely think they do share a little bit of that responsibility, and you even see um, I mean, a little bit of backlash there, but I feel like it's just become so normalized at some point that it's just not. I don't think a lot of people thought it would come to this, but I do think it's important. I'm very interested to see how this goes because, I mean, gambling is a very, I mean, it's a very serious addiction if we're being honest, and the rates just continues to go up, especially with the legalization of things like sports gambling in many places among the states. So, not exactly sure how you go about this. I think I don't know. I feel like it's murky territory, murky waters, and this. I feel like this lawsuit is set to drag out for the next bajillion years and never get.
Ooh.
It's gonna get like a
Oh
settlement
yeah.
in like 2040, and that's gonna be it.
Yeah, I mean, I do feel like it's one of those things where early on, it was one of those like this was a really novel concept, being able to obviously roll for items and be able to get them, and then notably not just like roll for items and get them, but then be able to sell those items. I feel like that was a big thing for Valve. Like they kind of pushed that into the stratosphere, especially because of how big Valve became. But I think that was more of a novelty. But over the years, since Valve has been around for so long now, it's kind of hit the wave where you're absolutely right. Gambling just now is probably the biggest addiction in the world. Like I say that's not informed. I haven't read like a study, but that just like makes sense in my mind. We're now in an age where you have apps like Kalshi where you could just gamble on random events
No
happening in the world. Like,
gambling. They're market predictions, Soren. What are you talking about?
sorry. They're just placing money down in case this
Yes.
very specific event happens. Yeah, no, that's gambling with a different word. Yeah, no, we're just living in an age where gambling is literally everywhere, and because of that, the market, which took this like this really cool novel concept, because if this was like a much smaller scale thing and it was a couple $100, this wouldn't be on the radar for you know police or
Yeah.
any government organization, but we're talking about billions of dollars of money being traded over pixels on a screen.
Yeah.
It's just crazy. I'm not surprised to see it come through, but like I said before, and like what you alluded to, if this does end up Valve's way, there's a lot of games and a lot of big companies that are going to very quickly need to learn how to make money off of games that are not through that system, because it has become rampant, especially with live service games being as popular as they are nowadays.
Certainly so. And to say one last thing about this topic before we close it out, I do think as well, some of the biggest things of why this is coming forward is because of this push to protect kids in a lot of situations. You see, whether it be like Discord or Spotify or just, I mean, the UK government requiring age identification, which I hope is not the route that this induces, but I wouldn't be surprised as it's another way for the governments to get more of your information, to have these companies have more of your information. So I think that might be sadly one of the downsides of this. I really hope it's not, but I think with with the overall growing ecosystem of video games and how just mainstream it's gotten within just pop culture, I think it's inevitable that these once games that were uh, arguably marketed towards people 18 to 30 are now being consumed by 12-year-olds, 8-year-olds watching these streams who were never, supposed to be, it was never intended for them initially, but now it's just what the market is and they're continuing it to go with it, and these companies aren't making any adjustments. So we'll have to see how that goes. But little bit different news. Hopefully on a wider
big
note.
drift right there. Big
Yeah,
90-degree turn.
A little bit different news. GameSquare and Capcom team up for Resident Evil Requiem launch. GameSquare has partnered with Capcom to deliver a global launch campaign for Resident Evil Requiem, featuring creator-led content, digital activations, and in-person fan experiences tied to the game's February 27th, 2026 release, which is actually 2 days ago. So, it'll be like 9 days after this. But anyways, you guys will have seen some of that going on, and more information definitely will be coming out soon. The campaign builds on GameSquare's ecosystem, including FaZe Clan and other media subsidiaries, aiming to amplify reach across gaming audiences through rollout in 2025 intended through all of 2026. Requiem marks the ninth mainline entry in the franchise, bringing back Leon Kennedy alongside new protagonist Grace Ashcroft, continuing Capcom's flagship horror series. Early impressions of Resident Evil Requiem praise its highly realistic visuals and intense horror atmosphere, but note the experience can feel overwhelming for some players, reflecting a highly positive but divisive reception at reflecting a highly positive but decisive reception at launch. Some describe it as a strong but imperfect entry, praised for blending classic survival horror and action through dual protagonists, through held back by pacing issues and some repetitive gameplay sections.
Dual experience is always one of those things where it has an incredibly high upside and a very risky low side. I think back to obviously very different genres, but like Assassin's Creed, not Unity, the one after it. Can't think of it. The one that came after Assassin's Creed Unity that happened in London, where it had. I'm sorry, my brain's turning off. Oh god, I can't remember. Really can't. That's really weird. Normally I can. But the fact that they had like Evie and her brother, I can't remember the brother's name. Wow, I'm trying to use this as an analogy and I can't remember the details. But I remember people saying that Syndicate. Thank you. But I remember people saying that. Evie Fry, her story was a lot more fleshed out, but there's also pacing issues because like you said, jumping back and forth between those double perspectives does make it just a lot more tricky. But I mean, if the game so far is having a pretty positive approach, that's always good. And the big thing that I'm coming back to is the fact that people are saying it's really good horror, to the point where some people it's overwhelming. I think the biggest sin that you can commit as a horror game developer is making a game that's not scary. I feel like that's like the one thing, and that's the thing I always hear from my friend. I'm not a horror game. I've never played a Resident Evil either, but that's like the one thing my friends always come back to that do play horror games. So it's just like, yeah, it was a game. It wasn't that scary. And so like the fact like at least the horror game's really scary to the point where people like are having to give warnings for it. That's a much higher bar than you would think it would be in the current day and age. So they at least hit that. And I mean, it sounds like it's a good game, so I'm excited for them. Okay, next big category here. EMEA Masters Winter 2026 expands and adds Esports World Cup stakes. Riot Games expands EMEA Masters Winter 2026 to 36 teams, with the top two advancing to the Esports World Cup 2026 qualifier, boosting Tier 2 stakes. The new three-stage format begins March 9th, featuring Champions Round, Group Stage, and Extended Playoff across multiple weeks. Top ERL teams gain a pathway to face LEC partner teams in the EWC qualifier, increasing exposure and competition level, and Academy teams remain ineligible for EWC qualification, with slots passed down to the next eligible non-Academy teams. And I think this is great. LEC right now is getting a little bit of extra backlash and not getting as much viewership since Los Ratones, which we covered last episode. They are no longer in and amongst the mix, and they are no longer an org in general. So I think this is obviously not going to bring everyone back in, but this is definitely going to help kind of equal some things out as this is good news for the LEC. People love when tier 2 and tier 1 get to interact because you get to see some of the best tier 2 teams and how they do really deal with the tier 1 scene, especially when you do have some really good tier 2 teams. I remember back in the day, people were craving some games from or G2 or the Guard back when they were in the tier 2 scene in Valorant, before I think the Guard went out of business. G2 got picked them up on their ascension. But people were talking about how like they just wanted to see tier 1 go up against the Guard, tier 1 go up against the Guard because they seemed like they were such a good team. And I'm hoping there's similar storylines for this LEC, or excuse me, EMEA Masters Winter 2026, because giving people more things to fight for and putting good teams against each other is always good news for esports.
I think as well. I mean, I have my qualms with EWC, but I think getting
Absolutely.
these tier 2 teams to have more games overall, like I think it's only a positive for the teams themselves. I know they'll be excited to have more opportunities to prove themselves. And I think as well, like you said, if we can get those teams to, I mean, whether it be players being scouted from this or just, I mean, I do wish the academy teams would be eligible for something like this, especially if it's not a like a mainline tournament. If it's supposed to be, or like if it's not in that world circuits, I don't know. I think it would be cool to see those academy teams have a chance at getting through this tier 1 a bit, but still having tier 2 teams face off against tier 1 teams is always a positive, always a cool and exciting adventure to see. But speaking of tier 1 and main circuit events, Soren, Master Santiago kicks off this
Yeah.
weekend in a blinding fashion with the new meta being solidified. Gentlemates and NRG opened their Valorant Master Santiago campaigns with a dominant 2-0 victories, defeating Edward Gaming and Zeli respectively. Losses put both teams at risk of early elimination. And day 2 of the event closed out the first round of the Swiss stage with another set of 2-0 victories for both PaperX over G2 and Team Liquid over T1, with the double duelist compositions continuing to prove itself to be the meta moving forward post patch 11.08 back in October of 2025. Round 2 of the Swiss stage will find PaperX matching up against Gentlemates, with NRG taking on Team Liquid later in the day. After losing their initial matches and their backs against the wall, facing early elimination, G2 will have to find their form again against EDG if they want to a chance. Meanwhile, XLG will face the Masters Bangkok winners in T1. And Soren, I know, I mean, we got some Valorant heads here. You know,
Oh yeah.
there's
Oh,
no
we
there's
do.
no Rainbow Six Siege, like none of that going on here this week with Ged. He's too busy playing Pokemon or something, being a good brother. So we get all the Valorant stuff this week. And honestly, I think Master Santiago, I got to catch most of the games, well, pretty much all of it, except for a little bit of that XLG one. I kind of tuned out after that the 13-3 victory that they had. I
Yeah.
believe it was on Haven. But I think it's been a great start to the event. And I think one of the biggest things that I'm excited about is how close and competitive this event is. The meta, it seems, to be honest, it seems the most unilateral it's ever been, to be honest, especially after those initiator changes. So 11 out of 12 teams are playing double duelist on a majority of maps, with NRG being that one exception, playing that double initiator style. So I think if where it kind of depends on who shows up on the day. It's literally anyone's game, and it's so exciting to see. But I think the biggest thing is the crowd in Chile has been just absolutely sick to see. It's
Oh yeah.
only day 2 of the events, and we're already seeing a packed out venue, no empty seats. It's just like everyone's getting action, even though there's like no Latin American teams. And every time, I mean, it's only been for what, lock in and now this. So we've gotten to go to South America for an international event. it's just the crowds never disappoint, and it's just I love the passion that the Latin American fans bring to the in-person events. Just second to none. It really is.
Yeah, I mean, there's a reason we love to see them. I will say, as much as we do also love to see them, I think there not being another Latin America team there, it's gonna sound really mean, but I think actually is probably good for the tournament and the like ambiance of the crowd because Lock-in also had a really, really good audience when they were in Sao Paulo.
But it was
But we
so
all
sick. It was
remember,
so
if you watch
sick.
Valorant, you remember what happened after that grand finals. Boaster finally lifting an
Oh,
international trophy to
oh.
pretty much an empty venue. So the fact that we're not gonna have a situation like that this time where there's like very clearly a home favorite that is almost only going to make it to the grand finals and then has a chance to lose, that means we're probably going to have this crowd for the entirety of the event,
Mhm,
which is always incredible
mhm.
because you're
Yeah,
absolutely right. The
yeah.
crowds down in Latin America and South America are just insanity. It's just always so much fun to
Mhm,
watch pretty much
mhm.
any esport that has a major down there. Unfortunately have not been able to keep an eye out for Master Santiago. I have been keeping up with other esports of recent, so I was not able to catch up with these games. I will say, not surprised to see the Chinese teams are immediately back against the wall. I was really hoping maybe we would
Yeah,
at least see like
yeah.
EDG come out and make a good run because they typically sometimes can
They
do it,
looked
but they've
better.
been the whole region's been struggling. That's fair.
They looked better than they
Yeah,
were regionally. Still wasn't great, but it was better.
we take that.
Slightly,
We take that
slightly.
after having a really rough year. We take that. So I am not surprised, but I'm happy to at least see they got a little bit better. G2 going down though, backs against the wall. That's a little
Mhm.
crazy to me. Besides that, the only other thing I really have to say is this might be one of the weeks where Get is happy he's not on the desk because otherwise we'd be poking jabs at T1 losing.
Yeah,
But
and it was I mean, if you watch that game, anyone like watching this, I think you got to see Stacks have an absolute return to form on Split, but they were up, I believe it was 10-7 or something, 10 or 10-7, 10-6, and they just couldn't close it out. It's the same leadership core
they're really close
that
there, bud.
was struggling back in Toronto when Munch and G last year, where they just couldn't close out these games, and it ended up being 15-13 going overtime for Team Liquid to make the comeback real. And it's just I'm really excited to see this T1 team face up against another squad because they just have so much potential. And listen, I like to poke fun again. I like to poke fun at T1, but these are my guys right here. You don't understand, Soren. I
I
need
I
Buzz to lock in. I need him to get
I
this
like the
win.
players too, man. I'm not a T1 hater. I love T1. It's just always fun. It's like when 100 Thieves does bad and I have to talk about it. It's always fun to point and laugh when a fan favorite or a person's favorite is going through it. But yeah, no,
Certainly so.
I'm excited as well too because T1 succeeding I think is good for pretty much any esport they compete in. I know it's like only two or three, but quite literally, if they do well,
It's still,
that means
yeah.
you're gonna have so. It's like if Sentinels does well in Valorant. You're just immediately gonna get so many more eyes on the product. So okay, that is the last of our main headlines for today. Last up, of course, is the miscellaneous, some of the smaller pieces of news from these last couple weeks. Starting off, the All Women Milk Cup, a key competitive platform for female Fortnite players in North America, has been discontinued, with organizers Gonna Need Milk and the Peach Cobbler confirming the shutdown, dealing a major blow to a growing women's esports pathway. Unfortunately, just a trend that seems to be happening. I think we talked about ESL, the women's league for ESL, and for CS2 also closing down a couple of months ago. So unfortunate trend there, but we hope something opens up in its wake so that pathway can remain open for these players.
Next up, Epic Games and Blast will host first ever German Fortnite Championship Series in Dusseldorf on May 30th through 31st, featuring 50 duos competing for a $1 million prize pool and qualification to the Global FNCS Championship. This event features 100 players from across the globe in a tournament with over $100,000, pretty good, and top 5 teams securing direct spots into the 2026 FNCS Championship. Next up, French organization 3D Max suffered a near 7-figure financial loss due to fraud by former partner, with CEO Stephanie Pons confirming legal action is underway and pledging to cover all missing player funds.
Okay. The inaugural Esports Nations Cup, notably different from the Esports World Cup, but same parent company, I believe, will feature a massive $20 million prize pool with a diverse lineup of 15 confirmed titles, including Dota 2, Valorant, League of Legends, and Counter-Strike 2. With final title yet to be revealed, PUBG Mobile has become the latest title to join the Esports Nations Cup. And to round it all out, if you can go a week without talking about Marvel Rivals, you're incorrect. 2026 Marvel Rivals Ignite season is just around the corner, with NetEase announcing March 27th as the start date for every region's group stage. With this announcement, we've also gotten the last-minute roster announcements for some Ignite teams like Pulsar over in EMEA and Swamp Gaming over in NA, as well as some MRC teams like Extinction, who are going to be fighting for those spots in Ignite through the Tier 2 scene. So lots of news coming out, and I'm super excited because that's going to be starting up here in like a couple weeks.
Should be super exciting to see how the 2026 Season 4 at Marvel Rivals continues. But Soren, that's going to be all from us this week. Thank you as well to Ged for those boots on the ground action. A little bit of a sideline reporting from him. So hopefully y'all at home enjoyed that. But Soren, thank you for joining me as always. To you at home, make sure to hit that subscribe, hit the like, and watch those shorts. You know, never know when we'll be posting. We'll be back in just another couple weeks with more esports news. We'll catch you guys later.